Welcome to my March reading wrap up. I feel like March was a very long month. Reading wise, I feel like I read more than I actually did, but I hope you had a great March and a great reading month. If you're new here, I do reading prompts every month. So for the month of March, my reading prompt was reading green books. So green book is a book with a green cover, or a book with a cover that has greenery on it, like trees, leaves, things like that. I read 2 thrillers, 1 historical fiction, 1 literary fiction, and I had 1 DNF. We'll talk about March's reading wrap up and also April's reading prompt. So let's get into it. The first book I read was on Kindle Unlimited. That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. This fits the green books prompt with the cover being green. This was a very fast-paced book and I think it was less than 300 pages. We follow our main character who wakes up on the side of the road in a ditch. She doesn't know how she got there. She doesn't know anything about herself, not even her name. So she goes to the sheriff's station and a man comes in claiming to be her dad. And after he extensively proves that he is her dad, the sheriff lets her go with him. And you basically watch him try to get her to remember her past, her name, things about their family, all that kind of stuff. Then we follow another perspective of a group of high school kids who are looking for their missing friend. And you can see how these 2 stories might intersect. The whole time I thought I knew where this was going until about 60% of the way in, when I feel like things started to change and just get more interesting, because up until then I thought it was going to be very predictable. I almost gave up reading it because I was like, I know where this is going, why even finish it? But then it completely changed and I thought the very last plot twist at the end was so out of left field. I try not to think too much about where the story could go in thrillers. I just want to go along for the ride. But it really caught me off guard and I was not expecting that at all. I would almost say this is more of an emotional thriller. I rated this a 4 stars. It definitely was sitting at like a 2 stars as I was reading it up until the point where things changed and it got a lot better. I would say to read this in the fall. It takes place in November. And yeah, being less than 300 pages, it's very quick. It moves fast. If you're looking for a surprising plot twist, I would definitely recommend this. Then we had my first DNF, which was Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaghy. I thought this one would be fun because there is a little bit of greenery and trees on the cover. I've only read 1 other book by this author, Wild Dark Shore. And when I was reading this, I was reminded of her writing style and how it's very unexplainable. It's hard to describe, but all I know is that I just don't think that her writing style is for me. In this particular story, the main character can feel the physical pain of animals. So when an animal would be hurt, she would feel that herself. It was very confusing keeping track of when the animal was hurt, but then also, was she actually feeling pain, or is that just a weird almost sensation that she could feel? I only made it 12% in, but I was just very confused, and adding on to that the writing style that I just don't really enjoy, I decided to give up on it. Then because I really enjoyed That's Not My Name and I wanted another thriller, I decided to pick up The Best of Friends by Lucinda Berry. I always see Lucinda Berry books on Kindle whenever I'm scrolling through looking for something to read, and her stories sound so interesting. I thought I would give her a shot with this book because the cover has green leaves on it. The story follows 3 women and their families. I feel like there isn't really a main character here, but all of their kids are friends with each other. They hang out with each other, they go to school together. One night when all the kids are hanging out together, one of the women's sons, Sawyer, is killed. Another one of the women's sons, Jacob, is injured and left in a coma, which leaves another one of the women's sons, Caleb, who was with them that night, mute. It's so hard to even explain this story because there are so many characters in this book. We're following 3 different women and their husbands and children, and each of these families has 2 to 3 kids. I had to write down all of their names, all the families, keep track of who was who, and I've never done that before in a book. Usually in thrillers, it's really fun to have chapters that end in cliffhangers, so you just keep turning the page wanting more. This did not have that. And the main mystery of this book, figuring out what happened that night, didn't get resolved until about 98% into the book. And even when we do find out what finally happens, you kind of already put the pieces together, so when the big reveal happened, as the reader, I already knew that. So I gave this book 2 stars. I would really like to read another Lucinda Berry book, but I just think this one as my first one was maybe not the right choice. Then I read The Mad Wife by Megan Church. This is the only physical book that I read this month. The rest were on Kindle Unlimited. Obviously the cover has green on it, so this fit the Green Books prompt. We're following Lulu, who is a stay-at-home mom. She has 2 kids and is married to Henry. She's friends with all the women that live on her street in the neighborhood. And one day a new family moves in across the street and the story basically goes from there. It's really a different book than I thought this would be. It was very interesting and I feel like accurate to the 50s. I mean, I don't know, I wasn't there. I feel like I can't really say much without giving it away, but if you have read this book, I feel like the plot twist was actually very sad. I just think about women back in that time and something like this happening to them, but not getting, I don't even know how to say it without spoiling, but I just think that's very sad. And I feel like I really connected to Lulu in terms of like being a wife in her daily life and chores. I gave this 4 stars. I really liked this and I would love to read another Megan Church book. Her writing was so fluid and I feel like she had really great prose. So I highly recommend this if you want a deeper literary fiction with a little bit of mystery. And the last book that I read in March was The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. Obviously, this is the greenest cover that I read this month, so it fits perfect. It's just following the main character Emma as if these were her journal entries. I feel like there was nothing really very interesting about this book. I did enjoy Emma and her personality and the cast of characters around her, but I was just kind of bored. And I don't really know if I'll continue. I've heard that it gets better, but I'm not necessarily in a rush to finish this series. But I've heard there's going to be way more books in this series. So we will see if I continue. I'm not really sure, but I gave this 3 stars. That is what I read in March. I'm still thinking about The Mad Wife. Like, I just really enjoyed that story and I feel like that's gonna stick with me for a while. But let's get into April's reading prompt. In April, I will be reading new authors. These are authors that I have never read before. So I guess you could say they are new to me authors. One of these books I have been wanting to read so long. I even went to his author event in February and heard all about this book, and that is Theo of Golden by Alan Levi. Attending his author event definitely moved this higher up on my TBR. I'm predicting this to be a 5-star. There is so much talk around this book right now. I'm so excited to see what this book is all about. But I really enjoyed hearing Alan Levi talk about this book and what inspired this book and just his life. So I know for a fact I will be reading this book this month. But before I get to that, I actually have already started another book and it's very different, not even in the same category. I bet Theo of Golden and The Chain have never been talked about in the same video before. I'm only about 80 pages into this. It feels like I've been reading this for a very long time. I started it maybe 2 days ago. You just dropped off your child at the bus stop. A panicked stranger calls your phone. Your child has been kidnapped. The stranger then explains that their child has also been kidnapped by a completely different stranger. The only way to get your child back is to kidnap another child. You are now part of the chain. Yeah, see, this type of story sounds very disturbing, but I know that when I become a mom, I will not want to read this type of book. I felt the same exact way with The Push by Ashley Audrain. I feel like if you're put in this situation, all of your morals go out the window. So yes, I've never read this author before, and if these are the kind of stories that he writes, I really don't know if I'm gonna pick him up again, but so far, I'm liking it okay. Another book I want to read this month is All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Whitaker. I actually tried to start this book last year. I feel like we're just kind of thrown into the story. So many characters to keep track of. The writing is very descriptively detailed, but now it is the book club book for one of my book clubs I'm in. I hear that it kind of has everything in it: love story, mystery, historical fiction, and is another book that I hear a lot of talk about. Another book I have my eye on for new to me authors is Happy Ending. I'm gonna be so honest, I know nothing about this book, but there's a golden retriever on the cover and I will be reading that book. I don't know if it'll be this month, but I will be reading the book. I've never read this author before. I don't even know, this could be her debut, but I think it's a romance and it just looks cute. And again, the dog will pull me in. Those are my March reads. That is my April reading prompt. I'm so excited. I love finding new authors. I love finding new writing styles. I feel like that really inspires me with my songwriting. So I'm excited to see if I find a new favorite author. This will also be the last full month living here, having this space for my husband and I move. And where we are moving, I am going to have a full room dedicated to books and music. I will be making a video transforming that room into a book room. But until then, let me know what you read in March. Let me know what you're reading in April, if you've read any of these books that I've mentioned, and I will see you in the next one.